good evening, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Book Club. Now, today we have a book to contend with, okay? This is Crime and Punishment, no less, by Dostoyevsky, no less. And I'm very happy and very proud that my student is taking up this challenge to present the book to us. So for all those of us who haven't read it or read it long ago, it's going to be a refresher in the book. And I hope to engage with this book and feel that I know something about it. And Friana is going to be our guidepost for this. Now, Friana completed her MA in English from St. Mira's College just a year ago, less than a year ago. And, she's out there in the working world now. But I'm so happy that she is making time for the book club still. And more importantly, making time to continue her reading. Because you don't have to be a formal student of literature to read. And look at the assorted bevy of people that we have over here. Everyone has something in the professional world, maybe nothing to do with books and reading, but we all read, and that is the common thread that binds us. And I think we're a very happy little community, always happy to welcome new people. And we see a couple of new people today, so welcome, hearty welcome to them.
Thank you.
And here goes today's presentation, Friana Munshi, Crime and Punishment by Dostoyevsky. Over to you, Friana.
First of all, a very good evening to everybody. And Crime and Punishment is one of my first Russian reads that I've had. Actually, I started reading Crime and Punishment way before I even studied the Cherry Orchard in college, I think. So this book was a long overdue, and I actually have reread the book recently. As much as I could. I couldn't finish it this time. But I think Crime and Punishment is one book which has so much content that it is very, very personal to everyone who reads it. It is perceived differently, it is felt differently, and I think it touches everybody quite differently. Now, for today, there's a lot to talk about in Crime and Punishment, but for today, I'll just try to compress it all and bring it to you in 4 parts. So the first way we will look at the basic information about the author and a lot of interesting facts about how the novel came to be. Then, of course, we will discuss the entire Crime and Punishment in its entirety. Another part of this book which really strikes me the most is the women and their portrayal in the book. So that is something I wanted to talk about a little more in detail. And lastly, why is Crime and Punishment relevant to the audiences even today? This book was published in 1866, if I'm not wrong. So I think it's been way too long since it's published. So why Crime and Punishment is so relevant to people even today? We look at that as well. So starting with Dostoyevsky, the very first line actually defines Dostoyevsky very well. He was imprisoned and put in exile for anti-government activities. Very radical for his time, was into a lot of thinking and looked at world very differently. However, after he went into exile in Serbia, once he returned, he changed his writing style, he changed his perception of the world. And after that, his work in theology was impressive. Another thing, so Crime and Punishment is the first novel that he published on his return. And it's the first of his 5 great novels published in the last 15 years of his age, the ones that Dostoyevsky is very well known for. But however, it could be very surprising for people to know that he burnt the first draft of Crime and Punishment in December 1865. So the idea goes this way that Dostoyevsky first wrote the draft along with another book called The Drunkards, which was supposed to be a long novella. But when he proposed the idea of the two books to his editor, the editor did not like the draft for Drunkards and was rejected. So what Dostoevsky did was quite clever. He clubbed the characters and the story attached with Drunkards to Crime and Punishment in his second draft. And he also added several characters from his real life, wherein his mother had sent him a letter regarding his sister and her life. And he used some of those real life elements into his work. So it was such that when he first wrote the draft, in his letter to Mikhail Katkov, his editor, he wrote that the Crime and Punishment will revolve around an intellectually developed young man who even has good intentions, but kills under the influence of some of those strange, incomplete ideas which go floating about in the air. So the ideology that he's referring to over here is nihilism. Which emerged in around the mid-1960s, and something he actually thought about well for quite some time until he renounced anything to do with the ideology. The new draft was then written and published in The Russian Messenger in 1866 in 12 installments. Another thing about Crime and Punishment is that it is considered to be the start of criminal psychology, the way Porphyry sort of looks at the motive, tries to understand why the pawnbroker was killed. So it's one of the first instances where people are trying to understand why a criminal commits a certain crime. Something very fascinating about Crime and Punishment is that it is written in 6 parts with 6 chapters each. Again, very, devil's number 666. And, again, his theological aspect comes in his writing because you see a lot of references to the Genesis, to the Bible, the story of the Lazarus, which will come in between, which we'll talk about a little later. So, the actions in Dostoevsky's book are quite symmetrical. The characters, in fact, are in such binaries that they are almost mirroring one another in opposite ways, which is again something we will discuss as we talk about the book. So let's go ahead. 1 second. Yeah. Right. So let's start with part 1, how the book starts. So I call it the degeneration of a man who's cornered by his circumstances. One line that goes a long way from this part was, "Do you understand, my dear sir, what it means when there is no longer anywhere to go?" And I think that no matter how much, this is a personal perspective, but no matter how much Raskolnikov tries to justify his crime through an ideology, through the idea and influences and principles that he cooks up. But I think somewhere along the line, his simple circumstance of being a broke student, of somebody who does not have enough money, somebody who has a sister and a mother to look after, who is seeing that her sister is cornered into a marriage by someone like Luslin. I think all of that sort of has contributed majorly to the crime. When we meet Raskolnikov in the first part of the book, we immediately see that Raskolnikov is somebody who is intelligent, very sharp-minded, antisocial for a lot of reasons, running away from his landlady and so on and so forth. But one thing that is evident from the very first page of this book is that he is planning a murder. And right from the steps from his house to the pawnbrokers, right from his attire, whether his hat is visible, whether people will recognize him, the way he talks to people, the way he keeps his presence less known, I think Raskolnikov was out there for murder since the very beginning of this book. And in this whole scenario, I think we are introduced with his circumstance a little in so much detail that we start sympathizing with him to a certain extent, where he does not have money, where he reads the letter from his mother, and when also when he goes to meet his friend Razumikin, I think we are met with a more humane side of Raskolnikov. However, Raskolnikov, as his name is derived, is somebody who has a split sort of a personality. There is the good and the evil in him, and I think that is the crux of the whole book, that the two binaries in a human, and which side is given more power, becoming the idea behind the book. Now, in the second sort of concept of the book is the act of the murder. The idea of the way he keeps thinking about the murder and convincing himself that he should not think about the murder, especially in the initial pages of the book. It's sort of fascinating to watch that. It's almost as if like it's a very mundane thought. It's just a thought which is like, terrifying him. He's trying to reject the idea at times. At times he is indulging into the idea. So you're not very sure in the start of the book, especially if you don't know the story, whether he will actually give in or not. But the entire act, he bases it on a theory wherein it's like the men of the world have the right to commit any crime if you have something which is more worthy of offer. Now, while this principle does not stand true today, nobody will believe in it for obvious reasons. But I think this was Dostoyevsky's way of putting forward the radical ideas which he had started to reject. And it is his way of saying that these notions in society, the consequences that could come out of them were so bad. Now, when we're looking at Raskolnikov plan this entire murder, we feel that the question is, why is he doing it in the first place? One is that, is he driven by his circumstance, as we mentioned before? Is it to prove his theory that men who have something more to offer can transgress and do things like a crime? Or was it very impulsive? Or is it just to prove that he's capable of doing something in life, that he's not a failure at every single thing in his life throughout? Like, he's lost his, he's no longer a student. He's not earning anything. He's living off debt. He's living off the money his mother is sending him on debt. So one has to ask, why exactly did Raskolnikov commit murder? He has his own theories. He has his own ideas. However, it is not objective. It is more subjective to the criminal himself, and hence a peek into his psychology of why he thinks he committed the murder. Now, in this case, Raskolnikov also comes across as a Napoleonic figure, where he's like this strong individual who is acting just for the sake of having some sort of power in his life, of having some direction in his life. And this sort of obsessive planning that we see, like calculating exactly the number of steps he's taken, 730 steps from his house to the pawnbroker's house. Then, happening to hear that nobody is going to be around the pawnbroker on a particular day. The sister is leaving town for some reason, for some business, and then planning to go to her house, killing her, and then chancing upon the stepsister coming in, and then killing the stepsister as well. It's the entire question here again is very obscure. It's like, is it impulsive? Is it planned? Some part of it is impulsivity. It's on-the-go improvisation, and the entire art of committing murder and trying to get away with it. The fact that he could have almost gotten away with the murder is quite perplexing in the book. So while we are talking about the crime, let's move to part 3, where I think it's imperative to discuss the idea that we have of a criminal. Not everybody everybody imagines a murderer to just murder and turn away, walk away, behave like a madman, do something. But then there's a very interesting perspective put forward over here, where we are seeing a man who has committed a murder, has gone out drinking in a tavern, caught spending money. They're not all as cunning. So it's like an everyday man can be a criminal, an everyday man can have committed a murder, an everyday man could have transgressed from the path of divinity, of God, of salvations. And that is the main idea of Dostoyevsky in this book, that anyone can be a transgressor and anyone can attain salvation at the end of the day. So these two sort of binaries keep playing at each other throughout the book. Then this is one of my most favorite parts of the book, and I don't know how many agree, but the idea that Raskolnikov falls sick immediately after the murder, where his fear, his guilt, whatever it is that holds him, and he is in a semi-conscious state, which is again a very abstract sort of a state of mind to be in. You don't know if you're awake, if you're asleep, if you're dreaming, if you're alive, if you're dead, you're in heaven, you're on earth, you don't know. And in that sort of an state of mind, he's lying there for days and days. Now, it is sort of it is probably his guilt, but the idea is that as his murder has been so obscure for obscure reasons, him lying semi-conscious again is like half of it was done consciously, half of it perhaps wasn't done so consciously. Perhaps there is some sort of impulsivity behind all the events that have taken place, and somehow him falling sick is very symbolic to the crime. Again, being in a semi-conscious state, being in a half-dead stage, it is sort of as if he's killed a part of himself by killing somebody else. And a part of his soul is dying. And in this entire cycle of feeling the fear, the guilt, he goes and he lays off his burden to Sonia and says that I couldn't bear the burden and I've come to throw it on you. So he's literally throwing his burden off on somebody else, the guilt. And the idea that the other person needs to suffer by hearing my suffering, and then I will feel better. It's sort of a reverse of catharsis at this point. And it's a very interesting way to put forward. I think Dostoevsky had a very intriguing way with words. And I am sure so much has been lost in translation. But there are just so many points in this book where you hear certain sentences, you hear the way they've been put across, like throwing your burden on somebody else, or having nowhere to go. There are certain lines in this book which will immediately strike you, even if you do not relate with the crime of murdering somebody, you do not relate with being poor, you do not relate with a lot of things. But there are just certain lines which will give you that small nudge that you too feel something similar down somewhere due to some other circumstance. And I think that is the beauty of Dostoevsky's work, to be able to connect with you without you having dealt with anything so atrocious. So yeah, the next part is the chase. Now, the chase is not simply Porfiry trying to find the murderer, or simply, Raskolnikov trying to run away from his fate, trying to run away from the murder. It is Raskolnikov trying to run away from himself at one point. He is trying to get away from what he has done as a person. He's trying to help Dunya run away from Lashkin. He's trying to help Sonia run away from her terrible fate. He is trying to run away on multiple levels, some in a good way, some in a bad way. And I think it becomes difficult for him to run away because the theories that he's believed in, the ideas that he's believed in, is all scrapped. Nothing is with him at this point. If he thought that he has something greater to offer to humanity, he does not. He has maybe semi-consciously had a realization that what he has done is a terrific crime. And what is striking is that he not once has tried to pass it off through the book as a very righteous act. He has said maybe that the murder of the pawnbroker would have helped a lot of people. Nobody likes her. But he's never tried to pass off the act of the murder as something that he's done to bring justice to the world, like we expect all villains to do. He has been very human about it and said that I am committing a crime just because I have the capability to offer something better to humanity, which is again a very fascinating thought. And through it all, there are two people who are trying to support him as much as they can. One is Razumikin, who has been taking care of him when he was ill, who has been trying to support his family, who has inevitably fallen in love with Dunya. And then there is Sonia, who has been through so much suffering in her life, and she is still that source of light for Raskolnikov through the novel. And yet, even in the support of these two people, he is sort of starting to lose himself slowly, eventually. And so the question is that how does one run away? How will he run away? And the answer to that is by confessing his crimes. So towards now, although Porfiry is sort of certain that Raskolnikov has committed the murder, he is still looking for evidence, and he will not tell in court that he already knows that Raskolnikov had committed the murder. In fact, Porfiry also has a major role in bringing down Raskolnikov's sentence, giving him a lighter sentence than what is given to a murderer. Now, Raskolnikov also goes to Sonia, confesses his crimes, tells her about how he's killed the pawnbroker and the sister, who was Sonia's friend. And meanwhile, we have Dunya's old boss, who happens to hear upon this confession and tries to force Dunya into having a sexual interaction with him, which she refuses, and by almost trying to shoot him. And he also kills himself the next morning. Again, Sonia's stepmother also has a very dismal sort of death, which also we will discuss in the latter part of this presentation. But there are a lot of confessions being made. It's not just a confession of Raskolnikov to the police or Raskolnikov to Sonia. It is even Raskolnikov's confession to himself. It is Sonia's confession to him, in a certain sense, where she is trying to get out more details from him. She's trying to understand the motives behind it. She's trying to realize why he has transgressed the way he has. And I think the one line that touched the most to me was, whatever you hear, will you always love me as you do now? And again, it's Raskolnikov's humanitarian side which comes out, where he just wants to be loved. He wants to be cared for like every other human. And I think throughout the book, although he has committed a very horrific crime, he has found a way to attain salvation, and that is by confessing. So he confesses in court, where Porfiry helps him by not revealing that he already knew that Raskolnikov had committed the murder, and giving him a lighter sentence, after which he will have the freedom to come back to humanity, to come back to being a responsible man in general. So the epilogue, which a lot of critics find to be unnecessary, to be should not have been there in the first place, I find was actually necessary, because the epilogue is the hope for a reader that even after all the bad things that you have done, you can repent, you can come back to reality, you can come back to who you are by repenting. And instead of all the theories that were in Raskolnikov's head, all the ideas that were in his head, if he just repents, something quite different will work out itself in his mind. And that is exactly what happens in this book. And Sonia, who gives up a lot and gives up once more her place of living and goes near the prison in Serbia, lives in a small town there, and helps Raskolnikov come repent for his sins. And of course, Dunya marries Razumikin after facing a lot of issues throughout her life as well. And I think the end is sort of tying a lot of loose ends. However, some of them were slapdash, but it is important to retain that sense of hope after writing a novel which is so deeply wounded. And the suffering is evident in every single page of this book. But the idea of salvation, the idea of hope is extremely essential to keep the book, to keep the readers of the book hopeful about life. And I think Dostoyevsky has done a great job at that too with the epilogue. Very few themes of the novel. One is nihilism, definitely the idea of the meaninglessness of life is evident in the way the characters have spoken, in the way the incidents go down. I think the loss of lives throughout the book. I think nihilism is one aspect of the book which is very, very prominent. Rationalism, which makes the entire nihilistic aspect of it quite logical, to be honest. I think Raskolnikov's idea of trying to rationally think about the crime he is doing to ensure that his transgression is not interpreted for what it is, the crime, but interpreted as a logical decision that he's come to after a lot of thinking. Poverty is, I think, the one factor which has pushed this novel into what it is. Right from Raskolnikov being indebted, to Sonia becoming a prostitute, to Marmeladov, to Katerina, the consumptive stepmother of Sonia. Every character has suffered from poverty, and the idea of materialism and materialistic gains and simply trying to live through life. They were not looking for luxury. Even Dunya, even Raskolnikov's mother, they were not looking for luxury. They were looking for stability. They were looking for livelihood. And I think in a place where that becomes difficult, crimes are bound to happen. And that is exactly what we see in the book. Religion is, as I mentioned before, one of the major themes of the book, because as we discussed before, the devil's number, the fact that we have a lot of biblical references throughout the book. One of them is the Lazarus story, which Raskolnikov asks Sonia to narrate to him. This is prior to him confessing of his crimes. The story of the Lazarus, where Jesus brought Lazarus back to life 4 days well after his death from his tomb. This story, sort of a hope for recovery for both of them who have sinned, for the both of them who are deep into crimes and not crimes. Crimes would be for Raskolnikov. For Sonia, it would just be a sin, as per the Bible. But the fact that they've both suffered in humanity, and this story of Lazarus, sort of like a ray of hope that they are dead souls, they are dead beliefs. Everything will sort of come back if they just hold on and they repent. Now, the most striking characters in this book for me, aside from Raskolnikov, of course, were Sonia, Dunya, and Katrina, all three women of the novel. And I think the treatment of women in this novel is so realistic that it actually shakes up a lot of women who read the book. The way Sonia, first of all, comes into Marmeladov's, comes into Katrina's family. The way Marmeladov and Katrina get married, they both have their own children. Sonia being Marmeladov's child, forced into prostitution at a very young age, has to carry the yellow pass everywhere she goes, brings money for the family, and then disappears to maintain their reputation, and rents a room at her provider's place. And the situation of Sonia, that she had to give in to sin, the lust, all of it, which is a very big sin for in Christianity. She gave in to all of that to keep her family alive, to keep them satiated with all their needs and wants. And I think, and even towards the end, this woman who has been representing sin for the first part of the book suddenly becomes this universal symbol. She first of all symbolizes the suffering of humanity, but she has also become sort of an absolver for the of all evil for Raskolnikov, especially when she is helping him in this in his journey to repent. And in that sense, I think Sonia has become Mother Nature in itself, where she is forgiving. She has forgiven humanity at one level. She has forgiven her own family. She has forgiven Raskolnikov of his big sin. And I think hence Sonia becomes a very important character throughout the book. Similarly, Dunya, on the other hand, who is described as determined, intelligent, tough, a firm character who can endure much, in Raskolnikov's words and Raskolnikov's mother's words, that Dunya can endure much. And Dunya does exactly that. She endures throughout the novel. Be it her ex-employer, Svidrigailov, who I'm sorry for the pronunciations, but so Svidrigailov, his ex-employer, who was actually married, and he still sort of wanted to have an affair with Dunya, and Dunya rejected him very clearly, very outrightly, but her reputation was damaged. And even after everything, after she left her town, she came to Petersburg to near Raskolnikov. She even agreed to marry Lushkin just so that she could have access to more assets, to more connections with which her brother could get more employment, so that they could be more financially stable. I think Dunya sacrificed a lot for her family until at the end of it all, she breaks her engagement with Lushkin and she marries Razumikin towards the end of the novel, which is the first thing I think she's done throughout the novel, which is just for herself and not for anybody else. And I think her sacrifices end there with marrying Razumikin. And I think her being forced to almost have a sexual interaction with her ex-employer after everything, and her almost shooting him with her gun is pretty evident of how much she had to endure throughout her life. And yeah, her firm character sort of shows through that. Katrina, first of all, suffering from TB, was consumptive, married for convenience, which Marmeladov agrees to. He knows why she married him. Uh, it was her second marriage. The first one she got married to, she had children with him. And then she marries Marmeladov to take him as her second husband. Takes in his child, Sonia, as well. And she is a lady from a high social standing, and she marries Marmeladov, who is quite poor, very poor, in very atrocious circumstances. And we see Katrina's resolve to sort of stay alive in this hard, brutal world, when we see her, trying to still be proud of her certificates, trying to be proud of her education, trying to push Marmeladov to get a job, trying as hard as she could to provide for her family. And what strikes us the most is her treatment towards Marmeladov, and how Marmeladov sort of justifies her behavior by saying that he could not provide for her anyway. He could not provide for a lady like Katrina, and for somebody so beautiful. And Marmeladov steals from her, sells the uniform that they've God knows how they've managed to get put together for him, and returns drunk, and she just beats him up because she is tired of life. And the reality of poverty is very clearly visible in Katrina's behavior, in Marmeladov's clarification for Katrina. And towards the end of the novel, we see her trying to make her children beg on the streets, going a little mad, rampaging, and then coming back home and then dying. And that is a fate that, after all those hardships, she does not see the improvement that she wishes to her entire life, and she dies. And I think all three women have sacrificed in the novel as much as Raskolnikov, or as much as any other character. And hence, I thought it was important to talk about these women in the book. Oops. Right. So now, Crime and Punishment as a classic. I think I think a classic is a work which can be remembered ages down the line and still be relevant to you. And I mean it when I say that Crime and Punishment will be relevant forever. And it is a book which will be very harsh on you. It is not a soft book. It is not a book which will very slowly try to console you. It is a book which will jerk you into reality and say that, morally gray is not just morally gray. You have to pick the right shade of gray. And even though you can either repent and make right of your sins if you have committed a crime, or you can sit with it and just die away like Marmeladov, and just drink it away and just accept it for what it is without making a change, or accept reality, start making changes, repent for your sins, and maybe you will have a life again like Raskolnikov will after this novel. So again, that is one aspect why this is a classic. Another is the emotions that are visible in each and every character. Even the smallest of characters like Porphyry, or any small character which was not a huge help to the plot, was also given such realistic expression, such detailed descriptions, that I think they were all real for throughout the novel. Every character was real throughout the novel. And one instance in the novel which felt too real to me was probably Dunia's ex-boss committing suicide, where he just, after being rejected by Dunya, gives writes 3,000 rubles off to her, 15,000 rubles to the 16-year-old fiance that he's gained at that age, or in his 40s probably. And he locks himself in his room, dreams of a flood and a seductive 5-year-old, and then wakes up in the morning and shoots himself in the head. And I think the reality that to run away from his sins, all he did was, the only escape route that he found was death and not repent. And yeah, it is too real to not talk about. So the realism of this book, the writing style of Dostoyevsky was truly, truly fascinating. And I'm sure there is a lot more to talk about and a lot of different things to add. But I tried to make it compact. I tried to keep it simple, but I'm not sure about it. How much I've been able to achieve that. But I hope you all have enjoyed the discussion. Thank you very much. Any comments? We can start.
Thank you. Thank you, Friana. Very well presented. Request everyone to switch on their videos and their audios, please. So we can go and talk on that. Okay. And now,
yeah, Friana, I want to clap, honestly. So here goes, because I think you have done a fine job, really a fine job. You have sifted through the novel and given us a very coherent picture, of what happens. So I think brilliantly done. And my next comment before the others are ready. Hey, Triana, you could switch off your screen so that we can have a better gallery view. I think the images you used.
Yeah.
So beautiful. My
very
Absolutely. Yeah.
my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean, can I sign up as your student, please, to learn how to do this? Really beautiful to look at, excellent to hear. Very well thought out. As I said, very well sifted through, and a very coherent, easy to follow kind of a commentary that you have given. I'm sure that people who haven't read the book also got the picture. If it becomes too involved and you talk about too many characters, it's very hard for someone who's looking at the book for the first time. But you have brought the important elements to the foreground. So very well done.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Prashant.
Please raise hand. Yes.
Prashant first.
Prashant is our resident expert. I would be very interested to hear what he says.
Okay.
By the way, Friana, you said that you read this book even before you read Chekhov, and you may have read Chekhov with me in MA, maybe.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I just want to tell you that I read Chekhov with Prashant.
Oh.
Yeah, he was the professor. I was the student. Yes, Prashant, over to you.
Okay. I have several comments. I'll take about 5 minutes. And please be patient. I begin by supporting what Mohini said. The paper had several good insights, and I was impressed by certain points that were made. For example, the novel has a symmetrical action. It is built on binaries, especially on Raskolnikov's binaries of good and evil. Then she talked about the women, the sacrifices made by the women, and expounded the whole idea of running away and the confessions. So in that sense, the presentation had several insights, which should go a long way towards our understanding of the novel. There are a few things I would just like to add, if that is okay. They are not meant by way of criticism. They are meant by way of advice. First is that I think, obviously, the speaker has been watching tennis, because in place of Serbia, Siberia referred to Serbia once or twice. So I think
I'm sorry.
it's not Djokovic.
I am so sorry.
Goes anyway. Then. And I
Well,
think
he won the Australian Open today.
You made a very important point when you talked about the epilogue. I think that is important. The epilogue, really not only sums up things, but holds out Dostoyevsky's vision. And those who have read Dostoyevsky's famous 1880 lecture would perhaps see the points there. That lecture was supposed to be a great lecture. When I read, I was not impressed that much, perhaps because, the speaking voice has an impact that reading a lecture never has. But that was supposed to be a great lecture that documented Dostoyevsky's vision that Christian Orthodox Church is the solution to all mankind's problem. That is the one that contains, shall I say, the panacea for all human problems. So that may be worthwhile to see. I might also perhaps point out certain people who influenced Dostoyevsky and certain people whom Dostoyevsky influenced. For example, surprisingly, but not so surprisingly, Dostoyevsky thought of Charles Dickens as one of his masters. Obviously, exaggeration of characters showing the lower depths would be a point of resemblance, but I think it's also true that towards the end of his life, Dickens got greatly interested in crimes. Don't forget, Dickens was a writer who was very much concerned with creating suspense. Then I would like to mention that two of the greatest thinkers in the Western civilization paid a lot of homage to Dostoevsky. One was Kierkegaard, who felt that Dostoevsky was the progenitor of existentialism, and the other, of course, is the great or the notorious Nietzsche, the philosopher.
Nihilism.
The whole idea of the Superman and the writers concerned with Napoleon would be interesting. I would further mention that something that is not usually noticed is that in some ways the isolation of the main character is like the isolation of the Byronic character. Let's not forget that Byron was an important influence on Pushkin, and Pushkin was the great pioneer of Russian literature. So there are certain points I thought I could add, but I do repeat that it was a very good presentation. And I'll end on a comic note by referring to Raj Kapoor's very interesting, and I should say a distorted version of the novel. Raj Kapoor made a film called Fir Subah Hogi, where he emphasized only the element of poverty. And although Dostoyevsky was greatly anti-socialist, Raj Kapoor showed Dostoyevsky as a socialist novelist. It'll be interesting to watch that movie if it's available. I think it's now 60 years since he made it. But I repeat, I enjoyed the discussion, enjoyed the presentation, and I look forward to more, sessions with the young lady as the presenter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prashant. What's the movie
Kanchana
called,
is the
Prashant?
first
What did
comer.
you say? Raj
Go.
Kapoor's movie? What's it called?
He made a movie called Fir Subah Hogi.
No, is it super?
Fir Subah Hogi?
It is another name. There's another name to that. But Fir Subah Ho Gayi is a song that is sung there.
Sorry, I can't hear you, Satish. Please repeat.
I think it's what the song, the movie you're talking about is not Fir Subah Ho Gayi, but it is, can't get the name out. It is Raj Kapoor as a poor man and wants water and moves about in the whole house all day, all night long. And finally...
No. That is Jagte Raho.
Yeah.
This is
Crime and Punishment is Jagte
Fir Subah.
Fir Subah.
Okay.
so they emphasize only the element of poverty rather than the other things. Because Dostoyevsky is concerned with the dark depths of the human soul, whereas Raj Kapoor showed the whole thing as a result of social inequality.
There was also optimism in Raj Kapoor's movie.
Yeah.
which is not there in our.
Who's talking? Who's that person talking in the background?
That's Usha.
It's me.
Yeah, yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, Usha. Glad to know you're there.
I promise you.
No, Kanchana has joined today only. Would I like her to tell us her opinion.
Yes,
on what
Sushma
it
is also here for the first time.
Yeah,
We'd like
good.
to- Hi, Sushma. So we'd
Hi.
like to hear from both.
Yes.
Kanchana, would you like to comment at all?
First, let me tell you that I'm very happy to be here. I really, really liked the presentation. And I read it at a time when I could not have a deep understanding. And I think I'm going to read it again. But one thing what struck me, especially since I've been living in Germany for a long time, is that the protagonist of the novel is really, I mean, he's lived through the historical moment of Christianity, and I see it very clearly how much this whole Christian preoccupation with guilt has really sort of influenced him, this whole idea of wanting to confess. And this, it's also very part of Christian belief that you confess and you will be saved. So I see this kind of feeling that came through the presentation. And as I said, this is my first, I'm not an English literature person. I read a lot of books. By profession, I'm a cultural anthropologist working in development. Of course, I don't anymore.
Oh,
So
that's
it was,
great.
it's really nice, and I love the imagery. It's she's put in a lot of effort. I can see that.
Or else she's just
Kanchana,
plain
welcome.
brilliant, you know. It comes so
Welcome to
easy.
our club. Would
Mhm.
like you to come frequently, think of the
Mhm.
books that you like, and let us know. We'll discuss that, and you can start the discussion going. We've had many such people there, right above you. So who else can I say?
I think
Doctor?
let's ask Sushma. She's also here
Oh
for
yeah,
the first
Sushma,
time.
there you are.
Nice to be here, and thank you for including me in the group. It was really interesting to hear Priyanna talk about the book, Crime and Punishment. And I think I've read these Russian authors really a long time back when in school, so I need to go back to them. I think the characters are very alive, and the very fact that the whole book underlines poverty is very relevant to even our country, where, you know, people go through poverty in a very coercive way, and how they deal with these problems from day to day. So I think this is an eye-opener for me that I should reread these books again. And it's wonderful again to be here. I'm an author, full-time author now. I've been earlier of English literature. So it's just great to connect. Yeah.
I'll call you back. We're in the book club.
Welcome to the book club. Come regularly. Will you do me a favor, Sushma?
Yeah.
Will you give me your email ID or a phone number?
Yes.
Put it down in the comment section, so I will pick it up from there.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll do that.
Okay.
Now, Ginny had put up her hand.
Ginny,
Ginny,
where
would
are
you like to come in?
Oh, by the way, Ginny
would like
is
to
from around the corner. She stays next door to us.
I,
She's on the
would
other
like-
side of the country. She's from New York.
I'm an artist, and I would like to ask some more about the visuals. Were they all done by one painter? It seemed to me they were very similar in style. Or did you use different images?
I did use different images, but the idea behind the art was pretty simple. So I was looking for some dark surreal arts, and I came across these paintings on Pinterest, and I thought that they fit the aesthetic of the book very perfectly. I think I have a couple of names also. Just a moment. I think I can share the name of a couple of the artists, if I'm not wrong. Yes, there is Yuriv Khudov and Pascal Blanc, and DeviantArt. These are three names that I can give you at the moment.
Did you catch that, Jenny?
You chose them very well. That it's it was
yeah.
Priyanna, can you
Yes.
send it to me? I will pass it on to Ginny.
The
My
names?
email. Yes, please.
Of
You do
course.
that, Satish? I would, because I couldn't write them down that fast.
Of course, of course.
I also,
I'll-
I also like to say I was very interested in the echo of feminism in this book and how you treat women. And one scene was particularly interesting to me when I forget which character kissed the hand of one woman. Somebody commented, how could she let him kiss her hand? Because it gives her such a feeling of being less powerful. And I think this is so interesting because in the culture where kissing the hand was prominent, it was such an honor. It honored the woman so much. So this is a reversal in custom that I noted. I have nothing more to add. It was just a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. What about Sanjay Saxena, Chattopadhyay, Leslie? I think we got an equal
talking
number of
about
guys this time.
talking about the images, they were
Yeah.
really very vibrant. And I think they suited the story really very aptly because the story itself was so vibrant. I like the way we get deeper and deeper into the mind of the protagonist and even of the others. And as at the same time, we ourselves become restless when we see the way their mind is restless. And then the way they project themselves, the way they sort of try to calm themselves, then they try to calm others. And the whole story is sort of, it takes you page after page. It's one of those old page turners, as we call them. And the vibrancy of it was well reflected in the imagery which you had used.
I think that the three guys down here, Sanjay Saxena, Chattopadhyay, and
Yeah.
Leslie, one by one. Sanjay, you first.
Yeah, thanks, Satish. Thanks very much, Priyana. I really enjoyed the presentation. This is a book I had read about 45 years ago when I was at college. And what struck me then, I don't know if you'll agree with this, is the manner in which it has been written. I came away with the feeling that the author is sitting inside the head of Raskolnikov, pardon my pronunciation, and jotting down every single thought that's going across his mind. It's in that sense, I thought that was remarkable about this book. And I don't find, I haven't really come across any other book which looks at psychology in this manner. The other thing
that's what I meant.
Yeah, and the other thing I found that I remember
Aditi, you're being heard. Yeah, okay, go ahead now.
Yeah, the other thing I found was the asymmetry. Asymmetry in the sense that a person like Raskolnikov, who's actually killed somebody, gets a second chance, a redemption. But somebody like Katerina, who never did anything wrong, I mean, she never hurt anybody. She lived her life as was expected of her. She dies a miserable death. So I thought it was unfair, shall we say, apart from being asymmetric. The third thing that struck me at that time, I don't know if you'll agree with this, was that women don't seem to have any agency. Decisions are being made for them by others, and they are just being moved around like chess pieces, frankly. And maybe that was a norm those days. I mean, we can't impose our standards to when that novel was written. But I found that everything was being done by men, and women were just passive characters, frankly. The fourth thing that I found a little awkward was that how easily Sophia accepts Raskolnikov as her lover, boyfriend, whatever, in spite of knowing that her friend Lizvetsia, what was that name? Lizvetsia has been killed by Raskolnikov. I thought that a little weak, frankly. Yeah, those are, of course, my views. I'm sure you may have something to add to it. Thank you.
Okay, just Mohini, let me just interrupt. There are a lot of new people in. and even there are some others. I would request you to send an email to me, so about your name and
Email ID.
Email ID, so which I can then put it onto our
The mailing list.
Mailing list. My email ID is very simple: satishkhot@gmail.com. satishkhot@gmail.com. Okay, everyone, let everyone do it so that we don't miss out there. I think Leslie is there as well as.
Yeah, I just wanted Rihanna to respond to Sanjay if she would like to.
Yeah. So what Sir said right now was actually very true, because the female characters are indeed pushed around a lot. But then if you see Sonia, she, at the end of the day, she sort of takes the mantle up. She has, supported her family on her own. She has made decisions to go with Raskolnikov to the small town to help him in his journey to, repent. So I think Sonia has made some decisions at her end also. Similarly, if we look at Dunya, for example, she also takes up the mantle to take the decision to marry Leslin. As bad as the decision is, she takes that decision to help her family. She takes that decision on her own hand after having a discussion with her mother. So I think even Dunya has her opinions. She has her own standing in the novel. And even towards the end, when she sort of breaks the engagement, she marries Razumikin, I think she has her own ideas and principles put forth. So I think they are pushed around, but they are definitely not helpless in a certain sense. Especially Dunya, I think that she has made a lot of decisions on her own end, be it out of her own compassion or anything, but she has made decisions on her own without a male presence. In fact, Raskolnikov did not want her to go through with the engagement, but she stood her ground and said that she wanted the engagement with Leslin. And I think that's what separates helplessness from choice in the female characters, in my perception.
Okay.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. I think, Ginny, you want to say something?
I would just like to say that Dunya really accepts agency when she confronts her former employer with a gun and comes close to the point of murdering him. Her brother contemplated murder and went through with it, but she was on the point where she was morally justified in committing murder, and she withdrew that emotion and that action.
Well said, very well said. I think I have two other people. Leslie, your comments, and Chattopadhyay, what's your first name? Okay, Leslie, you first, and then we'll go to Chattopadhyay. Leslie, can you hear me?
Would you unmute, Leslie?
Unmute yourself.
It was obviously a very nice presentation. I like the visuals actually.
Everyone is still with the visuals. Yeah.
She's done a lot of hard work on it. Yeah. And I did follow the book, and I think the presentation was very nice.
Thank you. Keep coming, guys.
Yes, sure. I enjoy book club. I think.
I'm so glad.
Thank you. Glad. Thank you very much. It's 22 years more.
Folks, do you know the book club was born 22 years ago?
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah. 22 years
23.
ago.
That's how old we are.
Oh.
I'm turning 23 in a month, ma'am.
There you are.
Wow.
So there we are.
We started in January 2001. And here we are. I mean, we began obviously with physical meetings. We met at Pune Club for years and years and years. Then we went under the umbrella of Gyanadab. And then we went on Zoom when the lockdown happened. And Zoom is just so convenient, which is why we can have Ginny and we can have Kanchana, from other places across the world. And it's just great.
Oh, we met a lady at the thing in Istanbul.
Istanbul. Yes.
She wants to talk also.
You know, we met this lady at a whirling dervish performance in Istanbul. And we were chatting, and she said that she was a writer. And I said, oh, of course, we're both always interested in writers. But the conversation didn't go very deep because we were walking into the performance. And what do we know? After we got back, we got an email from her asking if she could feature her novel at the book club. And then we realized, oh, we have met before.
Okay.
Marvelous. Okay, yes. So is it Sajjadri? How do you pronounce that?
Yes, ma'am, it's Satyadri.
Go ahead, Sajjadri.
So, firstly, I will confess I have not read this novel, at least in its full unabridged version, and even the shorter version I had read a long time back. But so, strangely, connecting it with the Friana's presentation is that the main theme that had even caught my attention back then, and it also did the same from her presentation, was the attraction of the very fine balance of psychology, rather the criminal psychology, not just, but also like what goes on in the mind of a criminal, that overall part, and it's bit of its balance with a personal a personal philosophy that was again intrigued in me, and right now like I really want to read the book. So that is a great achievement of the presentation, and how the way she presented, and of course like everyone I would right from the beginning, literally from the first slide the images caught my eye. And about them also, what I liked the most is that they were not like, they did not take our attention off what was written and or what she was saying, but they also complemented it in a way. So that was very skillfully done. So I really loved that, and I loved how she presented the overall story.
Yes, so you agree with me. I also thought she did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
One thing I must say,
images and
one thing I must say,
of course, her
Sayadri is my co-worker actually.
Okay.
And I have eaten his head with this book. I used to carry it to work. And he's been a very good sport about it. And he was adamant to attend this session of the book club to see me present it. And he's been a good friend through and through. So I'm just very happy that he's come here and that he's spoken. And I want to thank him actually, partly for the presentation as well. Our talks have been an inspiration. To say
he was a sounding board, probably, right?
Yeah.
Someone else wanted to put
very
up and put up. No, I don't think so. No one is there. Aditi is there.
I just wanted to take your attention to the chat box, where Prashant has said that the yellow color is important in the novel.
Oh,
so Friana, do you want to comment on that?
I might have missed that part.
Okay. Prashant, would you like to elaborate?
Sorry.
Prashant, can you elaborate?
Yeah.
Elaborate.
Sonia uses yellow color, and that is connected to her, her profession, as it were. And at one time, everything seems yellow. The whole room seems to be, shall I say, surrounded by yellow color. So yellow color in some ways connects with Sonia's profession and with sin. And I had mentioned another thing, which could perhaps be slightly doubtful because of the chronology. But Dostoyevsky's second wife, who was 25 years younger, who was formerly secretary, brought about a change in his life. Took care of the publishers, the debtors, make sure that he got the money, make sure that the books were published, and in many ways, shall I say, transformed his life. So she might have been, in case she had become his wife by that time, she had definitely secretary then, might have been inspiration.
Interesting. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Mohini,
now,
Mohini, you have some news to
Gitanjali,
give.
Aditi, would you like to pitch in, say something? Would you like to?
Yeah, the first thing I'd like to say is that throughout the presentation, it was visible how much thought Priyana put while reading the book. Just not for the presentation. Like the thing I like most about reading is how we can actually feel every emotion that the character. We are watching a movie, we can just see their expressions or just see it. But when we are reading something, we can actually know what's going on in their head throughout. And when she was presenting it, it just felt like she was telling the story as someone who has put a lot of thought in what was going on in the head of the character. So that's something I found like amazing about the presentation.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
yeah.
Gitanjali, anything from
And
you?
Aditi and Satyadri and Gitanjali, you have to come regularly now. Okay? All three of
Gitanjali,
you.
anything from you?
Ma'am, we are doing a Chekhov together this year. So that would be the start and introduction to Russian literature. I have read one short story by Tolstoy, which I remember, Ivan Ilyich, and that is all I've
Okay,
read.
okay. As you said, that's the beginning, right? Long way to go. Okay, Mukul, you have been silent. I think the last word comes from you.
I wasn't here. I had guests, so I was in and out. I'm not familiar with the book. Otherwise, I would hardly be quiet. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I forgot that you weren't here. Okay, so I think we'll wind up the discussion now. And I would like to thank Friana very, very much. First of all, she volunteered. You know, I didn't have to chase her. I didn't have to prompt her. I didn't have to persuade her. She volunteered. This was a novel that she wanted to present. And that's it. You know, when you read something that speaks to you, that feels significant to you, come and discuss it. I find it so satisfying. Like when I read a novel that I have really enjoyed, I want to share it with people. I want their take on it. And that's what the book club is all about. So Friana, thank you so much. Everybody who's here, thank you so much. You have all, you know, given your comments. It's been marvelous. Now, I have something to say. As we said, the book club is 22 years old. You know, it has come of age, as it were. For the past, let's see, I think from 2015 onwards or 2016 onwards, we have been functioning under the umbrella of Gyanadab. Now, Gyanadab is withdrawing, and we are once more on our own. Now, that is nothing new in the sense that the years under the Gyanadab umbrella were very few compared to the many, many years when we have functioned on our own. So it is, I would say, book club version 4. 1 was Pune Club, 2 was Gyanadab, 3 was Zoom with Gyanadab. Now we are Zoom without Gyanadab. But the book club remains the same. Okay. Now the technical help that we were getting with Gyanadab, we will have to somehow manage that ourselves. So amongst you, if there is anyone who can help us in some way, please come forward and help. Because Satish and I are not that brilliant, all right, with putting things, uploading things on YouTube and blah, blah, you know, all these things which Farooq used to do for us. We are not so brilliant with that. So if someone is, please help. Okay, so that's great. Thank you. And next time, that is the 12th of February, our next book is Where the Crawdads.
Oh, yeah.
And the movie has just come out. And it so happened the day the movie came out, Satish noticed it on Netflix. And we promptly watched it because we had just finished reading the book.
Could you please repeat the title, if you don't mind?
Where the Crawdads Sing.
Okay.
I'll send the calendar on the WhatsApp chat group and you will have the title. So it's I mean, I found it very beautiful. Very, very beautiful.
It's a beautiful book. I've read it earlier.
Yeah.
I read it last year.
My goodness. I mean, it's amazing. So do read it. You have time, you know, until the 12th of February. and come for the discussion. Okay. Now, Friana is especially brilliant in another field also, and that is finding PDFs. So whenever you find the PDF of the book that we're about to do, please just send it to me. We'll put it
10
on
minutes.
the group. Okay. So that makes it just that much easier for everyone to read it. But take it from me, it is a book worth buying and reading. It's a book you want to keep.
Right, right.
Yes, Satish, would you like the last word?
Okay, the last word is, again, repeat. Don't give me emails like what you have done right now, Sushma. Please send it to me on email ID so that I can collect
All
them
right.
again,
Okay.
go again. And my last thing is that I would like to thank Farooq. He's been very, very helpful. He was the one who said, okay, we'll get the book club going if everything is getting closed out. He pushed us through. He gave us a chance for using Gyan Adab premises. And more than anything, I liked his enthusiasm. His enthusiasm was so much that we wanted to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. Book clubs can go only up to a certain extent, but he felt that the need it should be bigger.
He made it more sophisticated in the technical sense. We didn't even ask for it, but he had those standards and he would elevate the experience, you know. So that has been very wonderful indeed. So yes, many thanks to Farooq. I mean, a pity he's not here today, because I would like to convey our gratitude for the years under Gyan Adab. And one more
Has he
thing
dissociated himself from the book club? Has Gyan Adab and book club become separated now?
It has, and I don't know how. I really, you know, because he hasn't spoken to us himself. He conveyed it, so we know, but that's about it. Okay. Anyway, the book club forges on, and we're very grateful for the time
everyone
that he
is
was
welcome.
with us.
Always, everyone is welcome. We don't stop anyone coming.
Yes,
and we invite you to come.
Yes, the principles of the book club, for those of you who are new, are very democratic. Everyone, you know, anyone can come. Everyone is welcome. There is no fee. Money does not change hands, whether on Zoom or in personal meetings. We never charged a membership fee. Neither did we pay our speakers. And sometimes authors have come from out of town. They came on their own steam because they wanted to, right? So no money involved. Okay, so that's it.
And even now, just now, Aditya said something, I'm interested in helping out, etc. That's very sweet of you.
That's
Send
lovely.
me emails.
That's what I want.
will take it on.
That's what we want. We want you
Friana has
to
already helped out, and she's going to be doing this thing going further. So please, thank you.
Super. Thank you so much. One more round of thanks is due to Prashant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prashant, because I requested him to be here, you know. I mean, because, as I said, I read Chekhov under Prashant's tutelage. So I thought that for a Russian novel, I would like Prashant to be there. And he made the time. I know there was something else going on, but he made the time. He came. Thank you so much, Prashant.
Thank you, Mohini.
All right. So goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Mo, which is the next one?
February.
Which is the next one, Mo?
Where the Crawdads Sing.
Yes.
By Delia Owens. Okay.
I was the first to read the book, and I saw the movie also, and it's good. Come on, look at see the movie on if you can, and we can discuss it later.
Better still read the book.
Yes.
Yeah. As Aditi said, there's no substitute for reading the book.
I agree with you,
Not
Aditi.
even the movie.
Correct. That's what I felt.
Okay. Bye-bye.
All the best.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye,
Thank you.
Brianna.
Thank you.